I was recently sent 3 stories to read on stream. Each one has its own, you'll see. Anyway, they come from a little thread on Reddit called Today I Fucked Up. Today I fucked up by cutting into a coconut. What do you mean? This Today I Fucked Up didn't happen today, but quite a few years back. For obvious reasons, I'm using a throwaway account as my family knows my main Reddit username. You're hiding this from your family? You made this in 2012. Anyway, around 8 years back, I lived in northern Mozambique. Didn't even know that was a real place, thought it was just a gun in Apex. A coastal South African country with quite a warm climate. My mother at the time was going through a health nut phase and only buying foods that deemed healthy enough. One of these was coconuts. She would buy several coconuts a week to use in food from a local market. Oh my god. Please don't go the way I think this is gonna go. This is f***ing... okay. Anyway, being a horny teenager, I fapped in regular intervals. Unfortunately, there was some severely stressful...
Severely.
That does sound weird, right? I'm not tripping on that?
Yes, you're tripping.
And as such, my fapping reached a higher peak than usual, and I was feeling pretty sexually frustrated. One day, I hear that my mother is going to be out pretty much the entire afternoon. Horny me decides that it would be a fantastic idea to f*** a coconut. Honestly, to this day, I can't fathom why I thought that would be a good idea, but my train of thought, back then, was clearly somewhat clogged. I'm gay! I end up grabbing a coconut drill. Dude, this motherfucker's going... okay. I'm reading severely. Okay, I was reading that wrong. I was having a fucking stroke. Like, is severely a word? Severely. Dude.
Uh-oh, retard alert.
I end up grabbing the coconut drill and through 20-ish minutes of concerted effort, end up creating a hole large enough for me to stick my porker into. I decide it requires some lube and I grab the nearest slippery thing, some butter. Oh, Jesus. Before shoving it into a coconut followed shortly by my meat. I fuck the coconut and it actually feels pretty damn good. So I blow my load. Shove the coconut under my bed and continue about my day. He's gonna forget about the coconut, isn't he? He's gonna forget about the coconut, isn't he? For the next week, the coconut is my savior. Oh my god, he it multiple times. For the next week, the coconut is my savior. Whenever I want to get off, I simply take it out and f*** it in its delightfully tight hole, made better each time by accumulating volumes of my semen and butter acting as lubricant. I'm gonna fucking throw up, dude. I'm going to throw up. It's heaven. Now, before I continue, I'd best mention that at the time, our area was experiencing quite humid, muggy weather, which exasperated an already existing fly problem. Oh! It's got maggots? Disgustingly fat, bloated flies were commonly found around the house, and the exterminators couldn't really do anything because it was a localized area problem that would go away in the winter. Oh no, oh no, 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 no. After the initial coconut fuck, I had been using it pretty much every day since then. I began to notice a few more flies than usual, as well as an odd, unpleasant smell from my room. It must have been the coconut, right? So I decided that I'll fuck it once more before I throw it out and get a new one. Worst mistake I've ever made. You see, the reason for the increased number of flies was that the coconut was evidently, in hindsight, a nearly perfect place to lay eggs. My groin, it doesn't feel good. Like my dick and like it doesn't, it feels uncomfortable and I'm not even doing this. A nearly perfect place to lay eggs. As I penetrate the coconut one last time, I begin to feel a strange wriggling sensation. Puzzled, I pull my cock out to discover that it's covered in rotted and moldy butter and semen and teeming with tiny f***ing maggots. They were wriggling all over my dickhead, and some were even trying to force their way into my urethra. I screamed, threw the coconut against the wall, which made the situation worse by spilling the contents. Hours of vigorous cock scrubbing, vomiting, and cleaning the remnants were spent reflecting on what the f I was doing with my life. Never again, never again. The TLDR, don't f coconuts. The edit, Jesus, this exploded. I'm glad my maggoty experience made some people laugh because I sure cry every time I think about it. My shame has never been this large. 47.1 thousand upvotes. My story of coconut f***ing is now permanently etched into Reddit's history. Lord save me. Cemented in Reddit history, like the cum drawer and box. So instead of a sock, someone would nut in a desk drawer and never cleaned it. There were pictures. I think, you know what? I think I remember hearing about that. I never saw it, never read it. I think I just read it, haha. I never Is that literally where Reddit gets its f***ing name? Like, I read it? What do you mean? Am I f***ing that late? Today I f***ed up by throwing my steak out a window. Not off to a strong start. Can't imagine how this is going to be as funny as Rogley says it is, but sure. Last night, my wife's boss from her brand new job invited us over for dinner. On the drive over, my wife reiterated many times to me just how important it was to make a good impression. I scoffed and arrogantly informed my silly wife that I always make good impressions. My wife's boss is a single lady in her 50s, so it was just the three of us. We chit-chatted over drinks and salads and seemed to really be hitting it off. She laughed at my well-timed, perfectly appropriate jokes, and my wife seemed pleased. Soon she brought out the main course, a nice big juicy steak for each of us. As I began to cut into my steak, I was discouraged to discover how undercooked this steak was. Now, I've had my fair share of rare steak. I prefer medium, but I can handle rare. This was several minutes on a hot grill short of rare. I probably could have resurrected the cow had I tried. Instead, I sat there fidgeting with my knife and fork, worrying about how I was going to get away with not eating this steak. Claim veganism? No. I had already feigned great enthusiasm upon seeking the steak. Just then, our hostess excused herself to the kitchen to take care of some dessert preparations. As I looked across the fancy dining room table at the open window of this third-story apartment, a cartoon light bulb appeared above my head. I knew I had to be decisive, realizing that she could return at any moment. I committed. I grabbed the steak with my hand, gently shook off the juice, and executed a perfect throw right through the center of the open window. Here's the big time f***ed up. The window wasn't open. That was so much better than I was expecting. The window wasn't open. It was the cleanest f***ing window you've ever seen in your life. That is, until my mostly raw slab of steak slammed up against it and slowly slid down, leaving a trail of bloody juice in its wake. My wife, whose steak was a nice medium rare and was unaware of my predicament, turned, jaw dropped, and stared at me like I was an alien from another planet. This look then slowly morphed into more of a "there is no place on this planet you can ever hide from me" expression of demonic anger. My wife's boss heard the thud of the steak on the window impact and came quickly. She took in the scene, the steak sitting on the windowsill, the bloody trail, my empty plate, and then gave me an inquisitive, puzzled look. I just didn't know what to say. It felt like a minute of silence, but it was probably 3 or 4 seconds. Finally, the best I could manage was, I am so sorry. I am such a klutz. I don't know. I was just cutting it and it slipped. Just ask my wife. I really am a klutz. Right, honey? No help coming from that direction. I'll clean this up. I can't believe this. I'm so sorry, etc., etc. Both women continued to stare at me like I had escaped from a loony bin as I smeared the blood around on the window with my cloth napkin, dusted off the steak, and continued to mutter my incoherent explanation. I knew no one was buying the story. I knew what I had to do. I sheepishly returned to my seat and proceeded to eat every bite of that disgusting, cold, chewy, bloody, raw steak. I remained pretty quiet the rest of the evening. My wife's only 2 words to me since the incident are, "I'm fine." The TLDR tried to sneakily throw my undercooked steak through an open window, only to find out it wasn't open. Here's an edit. Thanks, kind Redditors. Update. Just got the first post I'm fine communication from my wife via text who is at work. Good news, Shayna and I just had a good laugh over how much of a fucking idiot you are. I hope you know you will never live this down. I love you, you moron. So coming from someone who is constantly bombarded with over-the-top content, there's shit that True sent me where it was just like this face and it was just staring, and it was like when you're pissing in the toilet and it asks for more, right? That is what I'm surrounded with. So to read something that's actually well written and it has just a normal twist, that was nice. I enjoyed that a lot. The way that it was going, the simplicity of it, but the comedic punch of when it hit the, where was it? Here's the big time fuck up. The window wasn't open. That was great. I'd give that like a solid 7 out of 10, somewhere around there. Excuse me, that's comedy. I know, I agree. That is indeed comedy. Yeah, it's pretty good. Okay, today I've up for not shitting for a month. All right. Obligatory, this didn't actually happen today, etc. So when I was 14, I got in a huge fight with my mother, and she sent me to live with my aunt and uncle. It was an incredibly stressful event, and combined with my innate shyness about pooping anywhere but home, CPABH for those of you that don't know, can't poop anywhere but home, at first I didn't notice that I wasn't pooping. After about 2 weeks, I began to feel awful and tried without success to shit. It had built up so much that I think it was impacted. To top it off, my aunt and uncle were weird about bathroom stuff, partly due to having one bathroom in a household of 5 people. And twice while trying to force it, they knocked on the door and asked me what was taking so long, which made the whole thing worse. I didn't tell anyone, partly out of the embarrassment and partly out of fear of getting in trouble. They were strict and I did get in trouble for random things. Another very uncomfortable 2 weeks passed until one day, a month to the day that I had first arrived and the last time that I had pooped, I was sent out to rake some leaves and I was just in total agony. I went back inside and told my aunt what was going on. She was thankfully very understanding, although incredulous that I had waited so long to tell her, and told me she had had poop issues her whole life. She went out and got me laxatives, suppositories, and a fleet enema. Jesus Christ!
Enema.
Laxatives, suppositories, and a fleet enema.
You're a dumbass.
And showed me how to use it. At this point, I was in so much pain, I was just sweating bullets and dying for relief. The remedies barely helped matters, but in an hour or so, I hopped on the toilet and tried to make things happen. I put both hands on the walls and pushed with all my force, knees up to my chin, straining with all my might. I've since given birth and I've pushed harder during this shit than I did pushing out my son. It hurt so bad, and I felt like I was straining every muscle in my body to void this beast. After 10 or so horrifying minutes, I still wasn't having any luck, and I began wondering if I should ask to go to the hospital. But the idea of a doctor digging shit out of my asshole was just way too much to bear, so I pressed on. After 15 to 20 agonizing minutes, grunting and straining and thrashing and pleading with my ass to cooperate, finally, I heard my first heavy plop. Oh, thank God. I cried from the pain and the shock and the relief. The first foot or so of poop was much... The first foot or so of poop wasn't much easier. It was so hard and dry. I had to twist and strain for a while, but after that it got easier. About 30 minutes in, I stood up and looked in the bowl. Have you ever had a shit so large, so complete, that it entirely filled the rim of the toilet? It filled the rim of the toilet, halfway up the bowl, rising above the water in thick brown and black coils, iced with a significant amount of blood. Of blood? I've never, and I mean never, seen a pile of human shit like that, and I hope to never again. I would say about 3 to 4 kilograms of shit. 8.8, about 8 pounds of shit, about the size of a large round birthday cake. I flushed once, twice, plunged, and got back on the toilet for round 2. It just kept coming. This part was significantly easier, despite the fact that my ass had torn a little in the process of round 1. Round 2 was about 3/4 of the size of round 1. Finally, the flood stopped, and I gingerly wiped, flushed, cleaned the toilet, and emerged from the bathroom as a changed person. I ached inside for a few days after, but oh my god, the relief was incredible. I'll never forget that day as long as I live. The TLDR is I didn't shit for a month, had the most painful shit apocalypse ever, and lived to tell the tale. Oh man. Yeah, that was good. That was a really good one. That was a really good one. I have had something like this happen. So I suffered heavily from CPABH growing up. Again, can't poop anywhere but home. And I went camping with friends, I think when I was like 14. A friend of mine at the time and his family. And they're, you know, when you're camping, they would camp for like 4 or 5 days at a time. And it was like actual camping. And I didn't poop the entire time I was out there until I hit, I think it was day 4 or day 5. No, it was like day 3 or 4. And we were going to leave the next day. And I went to go get out of my sleeping bag and I couldn't sit forward. I couldn't like crunch my stomach. I was that stiff. I was that backed up. And I was like, hey dude, can you drive me to the bathroom? And he's like, why? I thought you went. And I was like, no, I told you guys that I went, but I didn't. The amount of shit that came out of me, I'm not joking. It was like probably 6 different logs about that big. And it was just flying out of me, dude. I mean, if you hold in your shits like this, that is what happens. It's not good. This was a lot of fun. So what we're gonna do, at least for the people that are Reddit people, if you have like a really good Reddit story for me to read that is like well written and you know all that, send it in the Discord. So if you guys have like Reddit stories that you want me to check, I might make like a separate channel because this is really fun. I really enjoyed this a lot. If it makes you die laughing, send it. Yeah. I think I might do this more. This was really fun. That was everything it needed to be and more. Good job.